Last week I made a robot with no legs, and so it's only fair that this week I do the opposite and make a robot with no arms, and with a flower on top. I'm going to start with one of those plastic bottles that I believe is from a Ginger Energy Shot from some health food market I went to. I'm pretty sure I only got the drink because the bottle was cool and I thought I could do something with it. And that was like a year ago, and now I'm finally doing something with it. I don't remember if I was actually energized by the shot or my mouth tasted like ginger for an hour. Either way, I got a cool bottle out of it, and I just cut it in half. To hold the two halves together, I stole this cap off of a non-stick spray from the kitchen because it was the only plastic cap I could find in my entire apartment that fit well enough inside the original bottle. I just have to cut it down a bit to make things fit. It's still a bit squishy as you can see here, so I'm just going to add a bit of foam for stability. This is just some XPS insulation foam, and it does a nice job of filling the space without adding too much weight. Normally this stuff is pink, but my hardware store sells the mint chocolate chip version now. One side fits snug, but the other side is just a hair loose, so I'll add this layer of tape that will make things fit a bit nicer. This is just painter's tape. Having a snug fit on both sides allows me to get an even spacing between the two halves before I glue everything together. I use a piece of styrene as a spacer to get an even gap between the two halves, and then I use some thin superglue to attach them. I could have kept the two halves separate to make painting easier, but earlier in the week me got ahead of himself. I want the top of the head to be rounded because it looks cool. And I'm sure everyone is shouting at their screen, where does this wonderful shape come from? And I'll tell you, it comes from this Sculpey craft mold. It's a bit dirty right now because I'm always using it, but basically what I do is whenever I mix up a batch of resin or epoxy putty, if I have any left over, I add it to the mold and then I get this little treasure trove of fun shapes that I can use later. I have quite a few at this point. I could have added another round shape to the bottom of this bot, but I found this spray paint cap fits perfectly in what was the top and is now the bottom. The problem is, now that I had to be all fancy and add this round top, it's too top heavy, and I'm worried it won't be stable standing up. So I'm going to add a counterbalance with this bolt that I'll glue into the spray cap before attaching it all together. It's like a little Easter egg inside, or maybe a Russian nesting doll with a bolt. Anyways, the next step is kind of the only step I have left, and that's to make the legs and the feet. I'm starting with some Gundam accessory parts, and with a bit of trimming and gluing and shoving things together until they look vaguely leggish, I put the leg together. If you're ever looking to get into kitbashing or scratch building, Gundam accessory boxes are a great thing to look into. I prefer the accessories over the full Gundam models, mostly because it forces me to be more creative in using the parts in ways that the manufacturer never intended. I find that with the full Gundam models, it's harder to see the designated leg part and try to figure out what to use it for besides another leg. And it's definitely not impossible, I've done it before, but this way just works well with my brain. Also, the accessories are usually cheaper than the full Gundam models, so that plays a role as well. Here, I'm just adding greeblies and starting to build up the legs. It made it look like I'm just casually putting things together without much thought, but this is actually the second leg of this bot, so as they say, this ain't my first robot rodeo. Also, I do a lot of dry fitting and rummaging through my bits boxes and greebly cases to find and fit the pieces together well before the camera ever turns on. So I make this look, somewhat easy, but really there's quite a lot of thought and planning that goes into it. As I finish up the leg, I'm just adding a few more detail bits to fill the space and cover any of those pesky holes in the plastic. And just like that, I've got myself two little robot legs. I'll also add these round accessories to act as the hip joints and the attachment points to the main body. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I don't like making robot feet. I don't know why, I just always have trouble with it. So I'll do the honorable thing and just steal a pair off of a Gundam model. I will add a greebly to them just so I can say that they're custom, or as we say in the fashion world, it's bespoke. If we all remember correctly from human anatomy class or the skeleton dance song, the foot bone's connected to the leg bone. And in place of cartilage and muscle to hold everything together, I'll be using epoxy putty. I don't recommend replacing your cartilage or muscles with epoxy putty. I don't think you would be very happy with the results. I would like my robot to be able to see, so I'm going to make an eye for it. And surprise, surprise, it's another Cyclops. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, you'll know that it's like a 90% chance that I'll only make one eye. And it's not because it's easier that way, okay? I genuinely just like the way it looks. A little nod to Polyphemus. What you're seeing me do here is make a little sunshade for the eyeball because I build comfort and style into these bots. And I just have to Dremel out some material so that they fit against the round body. I'll then use some more of this epoxy putty to create a strong connection between the eye and the body and fill any of that negative space. I'm back. I was just tired of talking for a second, and it's painting time. Everything gets added to a painting stick, and then it all gets a coat of flat black primer and flat white. These are the colors I'm thinking of using, sort of a military desert camo thing. And if you're wondering, like I was, why some of these are game air and some of these are model air, from what I've heard, paints labeled model try to match real-world colors mostly for military model painting. Like these two that are for the US Air Force and I believe the Imperial Japanese Army. Game paint is more of a generic colors and I guess are marketed more towards tabletop gaming and minis. Rumor has it that game paint is also supposed to be a bit stronger since the models get handled more, but I have no idea if that's true or not. I may just be spreading a fake rumor about paint. I guess not the worst thing to spread a rumor about, but nonetheless, we're getting back to painting here. I'm starting with this nice beige color for the main body, and then I'll move to a darker earth color for the legs. I'm using my gallery airbrush here, and if you're interested in checking them out, I'll have a link in the description and a coupon code for 10% off your order. Now, I'm in the process of making an actual airbrush box with an extractor fan, but in the meantime, I'll just use this cardboard box as a stand-in. And now that we're in the painting process, I think it's a great time to give a shout out to my patrons over on my Patreon. Thank you all so very much for your support. It really means a lot to me. If you'd like to support the channel and also get your name shouted out in every single video, you too can join my Patreon. I'll have links at the end of this video, in the description, and on my page. There's no pressure to do so, but if you do want to join, I would very much appreciate it. And if you're enjoying this video, please do consider liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing, all that fun stuff that helps the YouTube algorithm pick up this video and show it off more. I've got a bunch of other videos on my channel, over 100 to be exact, so if you're liking this one, I'm pretty sure you'll like at least a few others. So after this one's over, go check out my channel and give it a little peruse. I break out the water transfer decals and apply a few to the bot. I know I'm going to be adding a lot of weathering and moss to this one, so I only add a few large decals so I won't cover them up as much, even though I totally cover up the bottom yellow stripe here. The model in the decal gets a coat of matte clear to keep the decals down and to protect them and the paint from the next step, which is weathering. I mix up a batch of black wash, this time with a little gray as well. It's a mix of acrylic paint mixed with water and a splash of isopropyl alcohol to help break the surface tension so it applies smoother and gets in all the nooks and crannies. These Tamiya weathering kits have become one of my favorite weathering techniques, and I'm using them in almost every video now. I use a sponge brush and I pick up a mix of the rust and the oil stain and I start to apply it to the model. It's a very simple and effective technique. You're just rubbing that pigment powder into the surface. It really shows up on lighter colors like you can see in that lighter beige, not as much on the darker colors, but it does still work well. You can really see the difference here between the left leg, which has the weathering, and the right leg, which doesn't have the weathering. Using this gunmetal metallic and a small paintbrush, I'm adding a chipped paint effect on the edges of some of the pieces. A lot of this ends up being covered up by the rest of the weathering, but it's still good practice anyways, and a lot of my models it shows up really well. At this point, I can fully assemble the robot because I want this next few steps of weathering to look like it was actually together when it was weathered, and it'll look a bit more uniform that way. We're moving into the rust stage, and I'll be using these 3 rust effects. 2 are paints and 1 is a dark wash. I'll be using all 3 at the same time, so I add some to my palettes, and then I start with the darker rust in the wash and add some fresh rust on top of that. Then I'll use a sponge to blend everything together and to blend into the rest of the model, sort of feathering it into the surroundings. This is definitely one of those trust the process things where it's going to look kind of bad at first, but just stick with it, keep on adding layers, keep on blending. It will come together in the end, and also keep in mind that these paints dry a slightly different color. They dry a bit darker in my case. So keep that in mind for sure, or better yet, just do some practice rounds with your paints to make sure that they actually dry how you think they're going to dry. Let's make some moss, shall we? I'll add some green flocking to a mixing cup as well as some model bushes for some color and size variation. I'll also add some watered down Mod Podge and a bit of paint to darken the bright green flocking, and so I don't have to paint everything later. I'll then mix it up and I can start to apply my moss over my robot, focusing on areas that the moss would naturally grow. So like the flat areas, anywhere facing up to the sun. Because if moss has taught me anything, it's taught me that it likes the sun. I think. I've never asked moss myself, personally. We are truly in the home stretch here, and I made this little flower off camera. It's made from wire and paper and beads and super glue, and I just attach it to the top of the robot because I think it adds a cute little touch. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a fun time building this cute little bot with no arms and a flower hat. I think he's really cute, and I always like doing moss. I think it's a fun technique. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, put them down in the comment section and I'll try to get back to you. I do read every single comment and I try to respond if I can. I'll have a link in the description to my Amazon storefront with many of the tools and materials that I use to make these videos. So check that out if you want to support the channel and pick up some cool tools and such. Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks again to my patrons. If you're interested in joining my Patreon, check it out. Link in the description. All that good stuff. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Send this to your friend via carrier pigeon. All that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.